Today on Pots and Trowels we're talking citrus plants, which is brought to you with the support of Cobra Garden and Allett. Hello and welcome to Pots and Trowels. Beautiful autumnal day, the sun's shining, although we've had some pretty cold and windy weather before this. But the weather has now turned much cooler. We're getting these clear nights and we're getting a bit of frost. So what I need to be careful of is making sure that any plants that are outside that are frost tender need to be brought inside. Things like the agapanthus and some of the echeverias are fine to get a bit of frost on them, but things like these citrus plants really need to be kept frost free. They don't mind it cool, but when we start getting frost, then damage can occur. And the thing about citruses, they carry on growing all the way through the year. They don't seem to stop at any point. They've always got something happening. And even on this lime here, I've got blossom on it at the moment. So we can see there we've got some blossom that's just about to start and open. We've got some nice young limes that are developing. They're about the size of a walnut at the moment. And then we've got some that are already there to use in drinks or whatever you want to use them for. So we've got 3 stages of growth on there, so it's important that we protect them. So what I've got here is a lime that is very healthy at the moment and doing well. We've got an orange that's got some fruits on there, and again they need protection. And then I've also got a small calamondin, which is just a small little orange here, and this one isn't doing so well this year. In the past we've had loads of fruits on this, dozens and dozens of them, about this size fruits on there, but at the moment you can see this one, I think it's having a rest, making a bit of new growth, so it needs a bit of TLC, so we'll take that indoors. So first thing before we take them in is just to check them over, and what I want to do is to make sure that any little bits of dead wood are taken off. And this is a good example on this calamondin. We can see we've got bits of dead wood on there where we've got some nice new shoots. So I'm just going to get my snips and just tidy off these little dead little bits like that, and it's just a case of any snags like that, we don't want those, they die back. Just tidy them up a little bit so that we know that all the growth is then going to be diverted into that. So I'm just going to go over it. I've also got a few leaves on this that have been eaten by something. Now it could be a little slug that's sort of eaten the top layer off. You can see the veining in there, or it could sometimes be a little moth caterpillar, but obviously those leaves are damaged now. So I'm just going to go across and snip anything off like that, just to tidy it up a little bit. And it just means I'm checking it also at the same time to make sure there are no pests or diseases on there. The good thing about this one, there is a little bit of fruit just starting. I don't know if you can see there, it's only a tiny little fruit just starting on it, and we've got some nice new growth coming from the base. So I think come spring, when this has been inside, it will put on a flush of new growth and hopefully we'll start to get more fruit. So once you've tidied them over, check for any pests and diseases, snipped any little dead bits off, and you're quite happy with them, we can take them under cover. Now they need frost protection, so they don't need to be boiling hot or anything like that. It's just a few degrees. The books will probably say 10 Celsius, which is 50 Fahrenheit, but I've, in my old greenhouse, used to keep them much cooler than that. And certainly, you know, where they grow in other parts of the world, New Zealand for example, we know they grow in gardens there where they get a little bit of frost on them and they survive. So cool, frost-free is what they need. So I'm going to put them in the conservatory, but a polytunnel if you live somewhere mild and sheltered would be okay, or even a greenhouse if you can insulate it well, is to keep the frost off. You might also notice that growing around the pots of the lime and the orange here, I've got some plants growing in the pots. This one is a house plant. It's a type of Plectranthus australis, and then in this one I've got a Tradescantia, variegated trailing Tradescantia. The reason I put them in there is for 2 reasons. One is it just makes the base of the pot look a little bit more decorative when they're standing outside in the summer, and these have been outside since May. But the other reason is these 2 very lush trailing plants wilt quite quickly if they run out of water, and it's a good indicator plant. I know if these start to look a little bit wilty, it means that I've got to water my citrus in the pots to make sure that these stay healthy and keep growing. So just a little tip that you can use on any fruit or any big plants in containers, put something around the base that wilts quickly. So it's time to take them in now. It's glorious sunshine, but it's going to be cold at night, so these are going to be much better off now for the winter in the conservatory. So let's get these in. So let's make sure we can squeeze through the door. So this is where I grow my house plants in here. So I'm just going to pop that into a saucer, so we don't want it damaging the floor. And that's fine. It's not bright light, but there's enough light in here for those to be happy, and they can be watered and kept nice and cool in growing. So I'm just going to go and get the orange as well. So there we go, inside now, and again that one's also on a saucer, which basically means when we water it, the water's not going to go through onto the floor. We do need to carry on watering citrus through the winter. As I mentioned when we were outside, they carry on growing. We've got blossom developing fruits, ripening fruits on there, so we've got to keep them watered, but they don't need anywhere near as much water as they would when they're outside in the summer months when they're growing much faster. But keep the compost moist, so you know, if you haven't got like indicator plants that are going to wilt when it's dry, use your finger and just push it down into the compost. Make sure it feels cool and moist, but never ever let them stand in water, because they get waterlogged very quickly and the roots will rot off and then it will just die. So keep them moist. On a lovely warm day, you know, if they're in a greenhouse, a conservatory, open the windows, get some fresh air in. They like that. Don't make them too hot. They don't want to be boiling hot, but just keep them frost free at night. And feeding is also something you need to do, because the fruits are developing. We carry on with that feeding regime right the way through the year. Now you can buy citrus feeds, but don't worry about that if you haven't got any. I just use in the winter a tomato feed, a high potash liquid feed that I use probably only once a fortnight through the winter, and that just makes sure that they've got the nutrients there to help that blossom carry on. And the blossom, by the way, on citrus is really heavily scented, so you know, if we sit in here and have a cup of coffee on a sunny day, we will get that lovely sweet scent of citrus, but it will also help the fruits ripen and develop. And that's basically it. You know, just check them, make sure they don't get any pests on them. They're prone to scale insects, so keep them looking glossy and healthy. Occasionally maybe mist them with a little bit of water and they'll be fine. And of course then the best bit is when it comes to picking the fruit, isn't it? You know, there's a lovely one here. This one is ready to pick, so I'm just going to take that one off. So there's a lime there that we can enjoy, but what we also like are the oranges. Now they're not big oranges, they're not like the oranges you buy in a supermarket, but if I just get my knife out of there, they are absolutely delicious, because they, you know, they look a bit sort of scabby and marked and you think they're going to be no good. This is not for you, Molly, this is for me. And I'm just going to cut that, and it is the most delicious orange flesh in there. So juicy, and they are so sweet as well. So yes, we only probably get 6 or 8 of these a year, but I think it's just well worth it. Something a little bit different, and I love to tell people these are homegrown oranges from North Yorkshire. We'll see you next week. Delicious. Thank you for watching Pots and Trowels, and thank you for all the likes and shares that you give us. Next time we will be live, I promise. This time Sean's going to be with us, so we're going to be in the potting shed answering your questions and doing a few seasonal tasks. So please put your questions on Facebook and join us next week. We'll see you then. Bye.